What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I have an album review, and one that, well, since we went over the first one, I figure we got to go over the second one, and since we're kind of loosely ranking this band in a way, why not? So we're going to go over the latest offering from KK's Priest. The Sinner Rides Again. This also comes out on the 29th of September on Napalm Records. This band originally formed in 2019 as an international metal project, originally called Mega Priest because at one point on bass it featured Dave Ellefson. It was also rounded out by former Judas Priest drummer Les Binks and also former Judas Priest singer Tim Ripper Owens. Now Dave went off to other projects and then Les Binks, I believe, retired due to health reasons. So KK decided to round out his ranks with some fresh new talent and pretty much form a new band after his dismissal from Judas Priest. And admittedly, I think there's still like a little bit of that I'll show them for getting rid of me sort of energy to this whole project. But at least for me, it kind of got off to a rocky start with Sermon of the Sinner. I thought it was just an okay album, and I mean, you know, a few years earlier, Firepower came out, and Firepower is an absolutely crushing Judas Priest album. That being said, the comment section of the first review definitely had some spicier takes, saying that this is the true Judas Priest right now, and you know, current Judas Priest is not Judas Priest, even though it's definitely Judas Priest. For me, Judas Priest is Judas Priest, but KK's Priest isn't too bad. And honestly, you know, going into this, I was a little bit more reserved because I didn't necessarily care for the first one very much. I definitely thought it had its moments. But I think this album is way more focused. Like, honestly, going through this entire album, it feels tighter. It feels a little bit more refined, and the songs definitely have like a little bit more punch to them. The first three tracks in here, Son of the Sentinel, yes, we're going to have some Judas Priest references in some of these songs. Strike of the Viper and Reap the Whirlwind both kick off very energetically. Like, there's a lot of almost more thrashy riffs. You have lots of galloping, syncopated drums, even some kind of almost thrashy D beats. The riff work across the board on here, I think, is really solid. In fact, a lot of these riffs really kind of jump out a lot more than on the debut. And in terms of the lead trade-offs, KK and AJ Mills, his other lead guitarist in here, do an excellent job in terms of just owning the lead sections on here. Like, this album is so chock full of fucking shreddy solos. Every bridge is absolutely loaded with them, or just big lead harmonies. This is a lead guitarist's wet dream as far as like just being able to hear soaring epic leads on virtually every single track. And I honestly think the production's just a little bit better on here. Like, it's definitely more modern, but there's still a bit of that kind of old school warmth to it. Like, it definitely sounds like a more modern Judas Priest album, but I mean, the riff work definitely kind of goes throughout their career. Like, you know, KK wrote a ton of big riffs and just amazing songs for Judas Priest over the years. And I feel like there's definitely some nods, especially to like 70s Judas Priest. The speedier drums and the fun, clever riff work on Reap the Whirlwind definitely have some callbacks to, I would say, Exciter. And the song Hymn 66, I mean, there is kind of a nod to maybe like Distant Aggressor in there, like in terms of the chorus being that more plodding sort of like, you know, slow gallop, and you get these high-pitched wails that come in between lower vocal parts. Like, it's kind of the chorus on Distant Aggressor, and I mean, honestly, that's like one of my favorite Judas Priest songs, so I mean, I'll definitely allow it. And it's done well. It's done with heart, it's done with energy, you know, it's very catchy and anthemic. And speaking of anthemic, you have good, like, battle cry songs like Pledge Your Souls or One More Shot of Glory. They're rousing, they gallop, there's like great, you know, heavier, chunkier riffs on them, and they're definitely designed, I would say, to like get the crowd fist pumping in the air. Like, a lot of this kind of feels like it's just a giant throwback to the 80s and to some degree the 70s, just in terms of Judas Priest sound. But getting that anthemic quality to actually stick without coming off super cheesy, I think is, you know, kind of difficult sometimes. And for the most part, I think they do a good job, especially One More Shot of Glory. Honestly, it's one of my favorite songs in the album. You have some darker, more foreboding songs like Hymn 66 and Keeper of the Graves, which is a particularly dreary number. Like, there's more acoustic guitars, there's big oohs and ahs in it, which are kind of layered in like a choir effect. Like, it's, you know, a little bit more I don't know, kind of gothic, like you have church bells that open it up. It kind of takes its time to set the mood. It might, take a little bit too much time, at least in my opinion. Like it's kind of that whole taxiing before takeoff part, but when it does take off, the thrash riffs kind of come in there. Like it's, again, one of those notably more aggressive sounding, like heavier, fast riffs. And it just instantly picks up the energy, which it kind of does drop off a little bit because you get the synth choir effect towards the end. And that's kind of where, for me, it gets a little bit cheesy, are some of the atmospheric touches on here. Like Hymn 66 and Wash Away Your Sins both kind of open the same way with like angelic choirs, except they're obviously like a choir like synth effect. And Ripper doing like some weird spoken word in a very distorted sort of like I'm evil voice, but like it's kind of generic. Like, again, I like a lot of throwbacks. Throwbacks are fun. Sometimes throwbacks age well. Sometimes they age like Crystal Pepsi, which for me, Crystal Pepsi sucked right away. It was awful. It was like sugar and melted plastic just kind of turned into a drink. And some of this kind of comes off that way. Like, I like Reap the Whirlwind, but oh my God, the lyrics are absolutely pure cheese. Like, it's just sort of like nonsensical metal tropes that you've heard in like tons of 80s metal songs. Same thing with Strike of the Viper. It's, again, like just a rousing, kind of heavy song with just kind of dumb, vague lyrics. And that one I just think is, I don't know, kind of there. Like, it's the shortest track in the album. It's not even 3 minutes long, and it kind of just ends. Like, I feel like that was an incomplete song. And getting more into like the songwriting here, most of it, again, I think is really solid, but there are some songs that kind of stood out to me as like, I don't know, like not necessarily directionless, but maybe going in too many directions. The title track, for one, opens up, again, like kind of somber, more melancholy, and it kind of sets itself up to be like, I don't know, like more of like a heartfelt anthem, like kind of bordering on a ballad, and then it just kind of breaks into very heavy, chunky riffs and like a more lumbering groove. And, it's nice, it's heavy, but they keep kind of going back and forth in this. And honestly, it feels like two different songs that they kind of just mashed the different parts together and just like, well, I mean, this is one song that covers multiple bases. And it does, but it feels kind of uneven. And sometimes where the songs fade out, if they choose to fade out, I think they kind of fade out on maybe the wrong point, and namely the last track where it fades out on, well, like kind of the acoustic section. Like, you figured it would kind of fade out on like the big crescendo moment, because I mean, it does, the big final chorus has to be bigger than the rest of the choruses, and then it kind of just drops back out to, well, kind of what it led in with. It does a good job of the whole like ballad to banger sort of formula where it starts off very soft and then kind of gets down to like the big heavy parts. It's great guitar harmonies on it. But where it chooses to fade out, I don't know, like I feel like there should have been like a big closing to this, because a lot of this is, that classic heavy metal vibe. Like, you want the larger than life sound, and you figure you want to close in a high moment, like a giant crescendo, and it kind of just fades out. Some of these complaints are kind of minor though, but the one complaint I still kind of have about this is Tim Ripper Owens. I don't think he's necessarily a bad vocalist. In fact, I think he's, pretty good. He's got a solid range. He just uses so many effects in his voice. His vocals are probably the most overproduced part of this album. There are constantly filters, there's constantly doubling on it. There are very few moments in here where you hear him just sort of sing without any like giant effects on it. Like, yeah, like reverb, of course, yeah, but there's like constantly just something like a synthesized sort of like weird effect. I don't know, like that's always been an issue I've had with him as a vocalist, is I think he relies way too heavily on effects and not just his own natural singing. But overall, I think this is pretty damn good. The musicianship's tight. I think the songwriting for the most part is definitely improved on here. KK has still got a ton of riffs. Granted, I think they're kind of all in the same vein. Like, he's definitely got a box that he likes to play in, but I mean, it's a fun fucking box. That box is churned out so many fucking killer songs in the past, and it's clear that he still has the passion for the style, because these songs feel energetic and bombastic and pretty fucking fun. So overall, I'm gonna give this 3.5 stars. For the most part, I really enjoyed this. It's a fun throwback. It definitely sounds like Priest. Granted, I'm still going to give, Judas Priest the actual crown of the true priest, but this is still a good one. And honestly, you can love them both. There's nothing fucking wrong with that at all. Love both bands. I think this is definitely an improvement overall from the first one. I think the song ranks tighter. It feels more confident. I think even KK's lead play on here sounds a lot cleaner. That was kind of an issue I had on the first one. There's a good thrashy energy to it. The songs are more focused, and even the ones that are definitely clear throwbacks or nods to previous songs that KK has written in Priest, or at least helped write. Doesn't matter. They're executed well. They're fun. Yeah, Ripper's vocal processing definitely kind of puts me off and kind of takes away from like the pure throwback feel of this. But all in all, I had fun listening to it, and I think that's kind of what classic heavy metal's about. So yeah, if you're a fan of Judas Priest and just classic heavy metal in general, definitely check this one out. So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below. Thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there, as well as on our channel. But on Thrallsmetal.com, we also have our store. We have new shirts. We have old shirts. We also have hats now, too. If you were looking for some Thralls merch, that is exactly where to get it. And, of course, thank you guys so much for liking, subscribing, following the channel. It means the world to us. It's amazing doing this. Tons coming in the future. Again, the Judas Priest ranking is kind of slow going, but we will eventually get there. I also have like some other videos that I've shot here, some unboxings, some States of Metal stuff. That stuff is going to eventually come out. I'm back to working on collection updates a lot too, so there's going to be more of those. So yeah, tons of stuff coming in the future. And yeah, you get one more big thank you because you guys are awesome, and we will catch you later.